And of course, Union Pacific Railroad is one of the key railroad systems in North America. Just print of the network, the logistics capabilities offered by Union Pacific, and future steps to meet growing demand. For those of you who haven't met Beth, she joined Union Pacific in 1987, and she's held a variety of roles in strategic planning, marketing and finance, and most recently VP of UP's National Customer Service Center, a position she held for a few years. Prior to this, she was president of Union Pacific Distribution Services, so she's had a good exposure to a range of the business areas, and DEF being, I guess, one of the growth areas. It's something to be focusing on. So we're looking forward to how you see this industry developing in terms of the railroad's role. So over to you, Beth.
Okay. Is it just click through? Oh, there we go. Okay. Nice to see all of you. I don't recognize too many familiar faces out there, but please feel free to introduce yourself. We can go ask questions as we go, however you want to do it. We'll talk about UP. First, Integer was nice enough to share their data with us, so you all are familiar. Everybody's been talking all day about the growth story in DEF. Getting up to 1 billion gallons, at least theoretically, by 2019, and then nearly doubling again, really through the mid-2020s. And so it's a huge amount of volume. And for us, we always think about things in rail cars. It's interesting. We've been having meetings with a variety of shippers while we've been here, and everybody gets out their calculator. We're all trying to do tons to gallons and gallons to rail cars and all this sort of stuff. But it's roughly 22,000 gallons of DEF in a rail car. And if you really hit that $1 billion number, that's in that 40,000 carload range. Obviously, a lot of it moves by truck too, but definitely coming out of the bigger production facilities, we see a lot of rail car movement. So it's definitely something that the rail industry is very interested in. We've seen significant growth. On this next slide, you'll see that just at Union Pacific, we've got a 3-year CAGR of around 25%. So it was a pretty small base. My boss loves things that have a 25% CAGR, but I always like to remind him that, we had like 2 cars to begin with. So it wasn't that big of a deal, just trying to set expectations kind of low so you can exceed. But anyway, but it's been real growth, lots of great conversations with producers as well as marketers in this space. We are definitely seeing that shift away towards urea liquor. As you can see, the yellow columns there are the just straight DEF, and the blue columns are liquor, and it's really switched over, as you can see, into 2015 and really in 2016, where we're now moving more urea liquor than we are just straight DEF. We're definitely focused on having products in place to address the growth that you're expecting over the next several years, and I'm going to talk more about that as we move forward. Integer also shared this, and it's a little bit of an eye chart. You don't really have to understand it completely. I'll try to explain it, but we're not ignoring the eastern United States. We know it exists, so just don't judge me for that. But we know there are truck stops over there, but in terms of where our network reaches, we're really just showing you the western 2/3 of the United States. And the dots, the different colors recommend or represent the different large truck stop companies, and then the yellow is kind of the second tier and smaller companies. But these are all places that have retail DEF presence today. And then the blue lines are the U.S. interstate system. And so you can see a lot of saturation, clearly going to be a lot of growth over the next few years. And so what we've been thinking about is, how does our network overlay on that? So I'm adding on these yellow lines that just show you the Union Pacific network. And you can see it's pretty, with the exception of pretty much everywhere Coffee Cup is, which is South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming. We're in Wyoming, but just southern Wyoming. We're pretty comprehensively covering the area where the growth is going to happen and where these truck stops exist that retail DEF today. So we're in a pretty good position to help people grow into this market. And I mentioned earlier that I'm not showing the eastern U.S., but a fair amount of production and some import comes from the eastern U.S. And I think as you see some of the new plants come online with production, there's probably the opportunity to go from the western United States to hit some of the big consumption markets like Atlanta, et cetera, in the eastern United States. So certainly we're going to work with our interchange partners. I know there's Norfolk Southern and CSX folks here, and Transflow as well, who probably are also very interested in participating in this market, and we can certainly do that on a joint line arrangement. But I'm just kind of focused, I'm all about me today, so this is the UP map, but I want to work with the other guys too, so if you have multi-line needs, we're glad to talk to you about that. So what we've done trying to prepare for this market and for this conference is put together some materials that just talk to you a little bit about how we're able to get you into these markets quickly, especially as new trucks come online that require this solution, okay? So I've got kind of three different options for you, I guess I'll call them options. So the first one is a transload network. So the green dots on this map represent existing transload facilities on the UP network that can do liquid bulk today. And like I said, in the eastern U.S. on the CSX, Transflow is going to have great options for you. Norfolk Southern has the same thing. But in the west, these are locations that you can get to. I didn't leave all the little dots on here because frankly, there was way too many dots at that point. But as you can see, it overlays pretty nicely with the interstate system as well as our rail system. So this is one option. This is kind of your fastest to market option. If you call us up and say, hey, I really need to be in Salt Lake City or Denver or Northern California within a few weeks, this is probably a 2-week option for you. We can get you into one of these locations in just a couple of weeks. And it kind of provides you the best of both worlds, especially if you're just shipping straight DEF and you want to go right into a place like Coffee Cup that's just putting it right into a tank. The rail will be able to bring those 20,000 gallons or so. We'll be able to transload into whatever trucking conveyance you have. A lot of the transloaders are glad to do the trucking as well. If you have your own trucks, that's fine too. And then get your same-day delivery right into your facility. So that's a fast option. Some people want to control more of the freight than that. Maybe they don't want to be in a transload facility, or they want to use urea liquor. You're doing your own, I don't know what's the right word, deconcentration. I'm sure it's a better word than that, but it's not in my head right now. So this is another opportunity where probably within, say, a month, we can get you up and running at a UP team track, or we have lease tracks available. And that's all those orange dots are places where there's already a team track in place. You can bring your own truck and unload for yourself, unload your rail car for yourself. Or there's maybe property that we would be able to lease to you, and you could put a small facility up, okay? So again, probably pretty quick, but and that's where you wouldn't have storage tanks or anything like that on site. This would just be for transload purposes. And then finally, and we just really took one chunk of the country here, an even smaller chunk, on the western part of our railroad to show you site locations where you could actually put a facility. These are locations where we would have 3 to 5 acres. You'd be able to do whatever kind of buildings and or storage that you wanted to do. And it's either in an industrial park that we serve, or it would be, property that we perhaps own. Okay, so this just gives you an idea. We have the same data available on the southern end of our railroad. So if I know Texas is a hot market, we would have similar information available for you. Everybody got one of these. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but we have industrial development people in all these locations that are able to help you as you look for sites, okay, and help you through the process, which it was in here. I thought it was, and then I got confused. But anyway, so here we go. There's 9 of them regionally, and they know what kind of property we have for sale. They know where the industrial parks are. They're able to help you with whatever permitting processes there are. They're able to help you with track design. So it's a great group of people. Their contact information is on the back. Depending on the area of the country that you're in. We're glad to facilitate that for you through our sales and marketing team. And at the end, I'll have those folks stand up that we've got here so you can see them. And if you want to talk to them about any of these options, we'd be glad to do that. But we're pretty well based, and we've done a lot of research to understand, where can we really offer solutions to you. Now, this is a longer term solution, right? If you're going to develop a site, that's, just depending on where it is and how much you have to build and how complicated permitting is in that location, it can be a 6-month to 15-month process. But we'll work with you, all the way through that to get something up and running. I know some of the shorter term opportunities, people are going to be trying to figure out, what do I want to do in that market? But for some of the big markets, the San Antonios, the LA Basin, those sorts of places, people may want fixed facilities, in which case we're very glad to help you develop those. Whoops. Looks like I got to click through here. So in terms of, UP and really what we're ready to do for you, we do have a strong network. I talked about the transload partners. We have a team here from a marketing and sales perspective. I've got a couple of them up here. I'll ask them to just kind of wave their hands. You're welcome to stop by and ask them. And we got a couple more in the back that we know a lot about the market. We'll be glad to help you. We understand, what we can do in which places, what transit times look like. We understand that as a truck stop, you can't ever run out of anything, except for maybe crackers, but you can't run out of gas and you can't run out of DEF, right? So you need to have reliable transit performance from us, and so we understand that, and we can talk to you about those as you get ready to make a decision. We're also willing to put together special products for you if you have a special need into some of these environments. We're glad to do that with a facility or with the rail service that we provide. I mentioned the resource aspect of this from the sales side, but we also are willing to make the investments we need to make. So if you're interested in a piece of property where there's a small investment required to put a rail spur in, that's something that we're glad to talk with you about as well. We are making significant investments in our railroad all the time to support business growth. We generally are spending between $3.5 and $4 billion a year in capital. So, and a lot of that's focused on keeping the railroad safe, but a bunch of it's also focused on having the infrastructure in place to support customer needs and their growth. Okay, and then we are, a very safe railroad. DEF in and of itself isn't particularly hazardous, but there's plenty of other hazardous things that are moving on our railroad, which we pay a lot of attention to. I mentioned already the investment side of it, and then we really feel like we have a good reach for you to get into these major metropolitan areas and along the U.S. Highway and interstate system. So we look forward to talking to you about those opportunities, as well as, of course, we are also connected to a lot of short lines. I know a number of you have been looking at short line opportunities just because it gets you out of the mainline atmosphere of the Class 1 railroads, and we're glad to bring that network planning and development group into play if you're looking at a short line opportunity as well. So I'm really fast, so I'm going to finish up with a little UP commercial. I tried not to be too bad, and then you can ask questions.
As your shipping needs grow, look to the men and women of Union Pacific to ensure your shipment gets delivered where you need it, when you need it. With a variety of service options, Union Pacific has flexible solutions for the unique needs of every customer. UP is cost competitive with unbeatable products, reliability, and an award-winning green locomotive fleet. Put the power of America's premier transportation company to work for you. When your business relies on shipping, rely on us.
Yeah, microphones. I feel kind of bad. There's no huge line.
It'll come.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Thank you. So yeah, we do have a chance, time for some questions if you have any for Beth. I'll start things going with a question about prill. Do you have business moving urea prill for DEF?
We do have some.
Could you comment on how that kind of compares with moving UL or DEF? Do you see that growing as a trend, or how do you see it?
Well, so we move prill a couple of different ways, or at least we think we do. One of the things that's a challenge for us is the stick, which if you don't know what that means, that's just kind of like the commodity classification that gets put on it, is the same for us if it's prill as it is if it's liquid. So sometimes it's hard for us to tell what we're moving exactly, right? And then the stuff that comes in containers from overseas, we don't have a lot of visibility to that. We could be moving that in an international steamship container and really not know that that's what it is. They have to declare hazmat, but they don't have to declare the contents of boxes. You know, that's a government regulation. That's not a UP deal. But we do move some in domestic, yes. I don't. It's considerably less than what we move liquid.
So you see the liquid being the growth area?
So far, that's where the
so
growth's
far.
been coming from, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, any questions for Beth in terms of what UP's offering here? Questions or comments on the rail offering?
Oh, see, there's a brave soul. He wants to ask me a question.
Thanks. My name is Jeff Harmon. I'm with the API. I noticed from the commercial that you guys have a green fleet, and I wondered if you'd comment on whether or not your fleet is converting over to SCR. Are you actively using diesel exhaust fluid in your new buys, et cetera?
Okay, so, my knowledge is, if there's this much to know, I know this much. But what I can tell you is our locomotives are subject to like Tier 4 emissions requirements, which are coming through the locomotive manufacturers and meeting those emissions without DEF added on what I'd call the road fleet. Now, there are opportunities for what I call yard and local engines as they are replaced to be in a situation where they would take DEF. We do not have any right now. Right now, we're DEF free. I think there is the opportunity over the next couple of years as some of these switch engines start to get replaced, especially in places like California, where the emission requirements are even more stringent than the base regulation, that we might be using DEF, but today, no. Is that fair? One of my guys, yeah, okay. I didn't lie. That's good. Anybody else?
Beth, yeah, question from me. Can you comment on how things work in practice with the rail cars? Do most customers move just a single rail car from one place to the other, or do you have it would normally be a contract of a few at a time?